Please listen carefully.
Well, hello, universe, and welcome to the Optimist Daily update. I'm Kristy Jansen.
And I'm Summers McKay.
And we're part of the team behind the Optimist Daily, making solutions the news. We bring you reader-funded solutions news every day in order to change the tenor of news media, social media, and the direction of your days to one focused on solution.
7 days a week, we publish positive news stories written by award-winning journalists and delivered online to your inbox and through our social channels. And also, we are sharing these solutions in a commute-worthy, walk-worthy, highs and lows-worthy podcast. Today is Monday, the 25th of January, 2021. Good morning, Kristy. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday, Summers. How are you? How was your weekend? Oh, by the way, I had a wind event last night and 2 pots blew over and burst. So
it's funny because that was going to kind of be my highs and lows. So a lot of families, a lot of people do this, that every day you kind of sit back and you do like a roses and thorns or a highs and lows, so that you review not only the things that challenged you that day, but also like the things that were really great. And as I look at this past weekend, it was a lot of lows and a lot of highs. And for me, my low was that, well, my high was that I spent most of Saturday and Sunday reorganizing our yard and making it a new safe play area for Brennan. And that was really fun, but that also sort of begot our low, which was that the wind event came and just eviscerated my yard last night. I mean, we're talking house trembling, awnings shaking, pots knocked over. Fortunately, only a couple pots broke, but I'm watching sort of the lilting, sort of listing tumble that is inevitably going to happen with my rack of pots, because the actual frame that holds my pots, you know, that sort of extra garden area,
come tumbling down.
Yeah, it seems to have lost some structural integrity as it is right outside my window.
Perhaps moving them to the ground would be a good, well, you have Brennan out there. I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's just
a stormy weekend, a stormy day, stormy times sometimes.
Yep. But I do have kind of a delightful story, and this, if you'll indulge me to share for a moment, I would like to share what just a lovely little high as a mom this past weekend. As many of you know, Kristy and I both climbed Kilimanjaro, and that mountain experience was, for me, one of the most important things I've done in my life. I went alone. I traveled to Kili in Tanzania on my own, and I had a guide who I worked with, guide and porters, but I didn't have any friends traveling with me. I very much have always been this independent solo traveler. And that chapter for me is currently in suspension, but not only for reasons of motherhood, but also, pandemic. At the end of my journey, when I came home, and I actually didn't summit the mountain, I had to turn around about a mile from the top because I had a bronchial reaction that really was pretty intense and somewhat heartbreaking. And so I had to turn around. But nonetheless, that journey really mattered to me. So I made a photo book on my, on Shutterfly or something when I came back. And on the cover of the book, it says She Climbs Mountains. Well, I have all of Brennan's books on one side of the room in Brennan's little bookshelf. And they're the board books that, she can't rip, because she's quite likely to rip any page of anything that she's given access to. She's a bit of a Tasmanian.
That's the age that she's at. Yeah,
Exactly. But then over on my office area, where she's not really allowed to play, I have photo books from different chapters. I have our wedding album from my husband and my marriage. I have travel books, but I have the Kilimanjaro book, the She Climbs Mountains book. And yesterday I asked Brennan if she would like to read a book before we took a nap. And she got real wide-eyed and walked over to the office, which is also near the bedroom, which is also near the living room and the kitchen. But nonetheless, it was clear she was walking over to my office. And she pulled out the She Climbs Mountains book and she said, "Mommy, please. Mommy, please. Mommy book, please." And so we sat down in bed, and of course, it's nothing but pictures, right? There's no story. So I had to just make up a story. And I had gone on safari on this particular trip. So she pointed out the zebras and the ellies, which she calls doggo ellies, because I think they look like dogs to her. And it was just this moment where she was delighted because you could tell it was this book that she really wanted to read, and she didn't rip any of the pages. She was just so excited to read Mama Book. That was really just this very precious, dear moment where I got to feel like, okay, so maybe I can't keep the backyard from being destroyed by wind events. And maybe I can't make everything perfect all the time. And maybe life is chaotic and journeys are crazy and relationships are insane. But at a certain point, our victories are our victories. And it was really kind of sweet that my daughter was celebrating something that meant so much to me. So
that's very nice. Yes. Yeah.
That's my high from the weekend. Kristy, what was your weekend high?
I don't have something quite as poignant as that little story, but just my Kilimanjaro experience was also extraordinarily meaningful to me. I did it with a group of friends. There was 13 of us in the climbing group, and we had a tremendous experience ourselves. I struggled the final day, but I did make it up. All of us did. And my group ranged in age from 13 to, I think, 57. Maybe it was 60.
Amazing.
So we were a very large age range, but it was a very meaningful trip for me. And I did it with my boyfriend at the time, and we ended up after that deciding to have a baby together. And his middle name is Uhuru, which is the name of the peak for Kilimanjaro. Yeah. And it means freedom in Swahili. So that trip was extraordinarily meaningful to me as well. It was such an adventure, and it was such a testament of working together to accomplish our goals. And the fact that all of us made it to the top, and just sharing that experience with those friends bonded us in very deep ways. So yeah, and I'm still close with all of them. Even though I'm not with my son's father any longer, we're still good friends, and we are, raising him together. Mm-hmm. So that's my Kilimanjaro poignant story, even though it wasn't active this weekend.
You didn't. but you and your son got to spend some time.
Yes, we did.
That was definitely a high, I'm sure.
It was, and he just cracks me up. And he's 14 now, going on 15, and in 10th grade. And anyway, he's such a character. His latest thing now is archery. When he was a little kid, he always was making himself bows and arrows using sticks and twine. And for some reason during this pandemic, he's picked that up again. But now he's, mostly grown. And so he started making himself new bows and arrows. So his father ended up getting him an actual archery set, and now setting up a whole course for him to be able to practice that. And that's just been so much fun to watch.
Well, that is so exciting and darling, and I love the idea of him doing that.
It's so good. He was doing knitting for a while. He's gone. There's like different seasons.
I was gonna say, this is a kid with a ton of hobbies. I love the variant hobbies. It definitely, he's got a creative brain, and he's a very curious person. Yeah. What I think this can segue gently into is perhaps your story today.
Yeah, the story that I loved. Actually, both of us loved. We were fighting over who got to talk about it first. But the headline reads, "A student science project convinces a school district to switch to all electric buses." And I just think it shows how young, creative, inventive kids can really have a difference and help push the needle forward in terms of the future. Yeah. But this particular story in the Miami-Dade County Public School District is going to convert all of their diesel school buses to all electric models by the end of this year, by end of 2021. And this change, it has really positive environmental benefits and also public health benefits, but it wouldn't have happened without the extra push of a middle school student named Holly Thorpe. Thorpe created a science fair project that was looking at the benefit of electric vehicles and presented it to the school district board with a proposition. So not only did she do the research, but she also had a proposal, a solution suggesting to convert all of the local school buses to electric models. And her research was mainly focused on the fact that the carbon dioxide fumes inside the buses were 10 times higher than levels recommended by the EPA. So that means that the kids in those buses are being exposed to toxic fumes. And not only that, but electric buses have far lower maintenance costs, even if they cost, a little bit more on the front end. Over the lifetime of owning those buses, it'll be much cheaper to run them. And it's a great symbolic move for these kids to be riding in electric buses. It's much quieter. It helps to reduce emissions for the overall air. And I think this was a fantastic story. So the school district plans to obtain the funding for the transition from a federal grant, so that'll help make it affordable. And according to Michelle Drucker, who's the environmental chair of the Miami-Dade County PTSA Council, the school district has the final flexibility to make the change. Like, this was something that they could do whenever they wanted to, but Thorpe's presentation really gave them that final push that they needed to change their mindset on the issue. And it was an environmental argument. I don't know if she also talked about the economic benefits of making this change, but I think this is just it's a lovely story. And the way that we're going to move off of fossil fuels is going to be through fleet vehicles like this. And
yes,
I think schools are a great place to focus on that, and having science projects like this, and middle school in particular, it's a wonderful age group for these kids to really get involved.
Right. We've written about these kinds of stories before, but just the impact that Thorpe will feel for the rest of her life, right? The fact that the kids in that class will know that change was affected by research, science, data, and proposal is so valuable, right? That change can be affected is just, it's just a gift. And I'm so delighted by this story. And I think that giving ourselves the opportunity to listen to our children, to listen to creators, to give them the tools that they need to come up with new solutions is how we are going to sort of collaborate and ensure this future, continues in a positive direction. What I loved most about this story is just the idea that, this was something everybody was thinking about. And then it was a kid who was like, hey, let's just, I don't know, do it now. Can we just do it now? And, and just removing those barriers of here's the reasons why we won't, and instead, here's the reason why we should. Well, I had a story that was likewise from the science section of the Optimist Daily. We love science around here. And this one is about looking at things from a different perspective. The headline reads, ISS captures footage of blue lightning bursting upwards towards space. Now, we've all witnessed thunderstorms. They are amazing and incredible natural phenomena to behold. But guess what? They also happen in space. The European Space Agency recently released some footage taken on the International Space Station that shows the electrical activity of a thunderstorm from above. The unusual phenomenon, which is known as blue jets, basically have blue-colored lightning blasts shooting upward from storm clouds into the highest regions of the stratosphere. They create these rings that are sort of short-lived, and the rings are called elves. They're rare to see in space because they pass so quickly. What is just magical and beautiful about this is the idea of stardust for me. That there's just, you think of the Northern Lights and then you think of them happening in space, basically, obviously very different phenomenons occurring. But I love the color and the explosion and the expansion of what we can see in space and what that allows us to also do, what this research offers as a solution, because it gives us more information about the genesis of thunderstorms here on Earth and predictability and ways that we can be aware for them. Yes.
I have a question. So is the thunderstorm's not actually happening in space? It's actually being watched from space, but it's happening in the Earth's atmosphere.
Well,
right?
It's happening in the Earth's atmosphere, but they're actually shooting into the highest regions of the stratosphere.
Okay.
So they're shooting into space. These lightning, strikes, they're generated here, but they're shooting all the way up into the stratosphere.
That's amazing. I mean, I think how you open this, just talking about the different perspectives, this is another reason that it's valuable to have a different point of view, right? Because we can see only one side of the activity from the Earth's surface, but when you're then on the other side of the atmosphere, you can experience a whole different part of the phenomenon of a thunderstorm and lightning, and then that can teach you more about how these storms work and how it distributes the gases through the atmosphere and Plus, it's just a beautiful,
exactly. And it's
beautiful
also
and
super pretty.
awesome experience to observe. Well, I love it.
Speaking of awesome and super pretty, terrible transition there, Summers, but nonetheless, we have to get to our team meetings. So there's just a few more headlines on Optimist Daily you should read today. Studies suggest eating healthy makes vaccines more effective. There is some alt leather made from pineapple leaves called Piña Text. There is a way to improve your finances even in challenging times. And good old Animal Crossing's Swedish reindeer, we got your back. There is an eco-friendly grow-it-yourself helmet made from mycelium and hay. That seems like an allergy waiting to happen. Ideas on how the U.S. Treasury can promote a greener economic future, and a compostable electronic display to help reduce e-waste. That and all the other amazing stories that were on the Optimist Daily over the weekend and in the previous months. Please take a look at them today. And thank you guys all for listening to the Optimist Daily Update. We promise to continue to share positive solution-based stories on how you can participate in this changing world and ensure it is changed for the good.
And if you haven't already, and if you have the means, please consider becoming an emissary on theoptimistdaily.com. And starting at just $5 a month, you can help support reader-funded independent journalism and be a part of the solution-changing consciousness that addresses our world's biggest challenges with a problem-solving mindset. That shifting mindset, so important. Please help us keep the Optimist Daily free for everyone who needs it, supported by those of us who can. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow.
All right. See you guys tomorrow.